And hello, good morning. Yeah, it's just me this morning. Well, I'm going to do some screen sharing as well. Let me take the banner off, and I will tell you why. Why what we're doing today. I'm gonna. I keep coming up with different ideas. I got the Easter Bunny came yesterday, a little early, and I wanted to share some of that with you. Some of my Easter basket goodness that came my way. A house called tomorrow. A house called tomorrow. And I'm just because I wasn't thinking, was I? When I started this, I'm like, I want. It is Copper Canyon Press, 50 Years of Poetry, A House Called Tomorrow. And I want to share it with you and read a little bit out of it. Here we go. Come on. You can do it. The interwebs. The interwebs. Here we go. And we're going to share screen. Because this is this is why I have been playing hooky in the last 24 hours. So instead of oh yeah, look at that, even Walmart's got it. Who knew? I pre-ordered, so mine came this week. Let's just go right here and go to the. Let's see. Now, do you see that too? I did a whole thing thinking I was sharing screen. Oh, yeah. Good. And I'd switched tabs and it didn't follow me. That was what I did this morning. House Called Tomorrow, 50 Years of Poetry. Poetry is vital to language and living. This anthology celebrates 50 years of Copper Canyon Press publications, one extraordinary poem at a time. Since its founding in 1972, Copper Canyon has been entirely dedicated to publishing poetry books. Here, Executive Director Michael Wager invites press staff and boards past and present, press staff and boards past and present to curate a retrospective. And mine came in, like I said yesterday. It came in yesterday. So guess what I have been doing? I've been having my head buried in this wonderful book. And so instead of one poem, I'm going to make a poem of doing a little bit of reading and encouraging you guys to go and support modern poetry. So normally what I've been doing here is I've been reading, especially for National Poetry Month, I've been reading public domain poems. These are not public domain poems. These are newly republished poems in a collection with Copper Canyon Press. So I highly recommend. In memory of J. Patrick Lannon Jr. And this is I'm reading from the insert, the preface pages. What we need is more people who specialize in the impossible, and that's Theodore Reiki. And and that's how I've always called him, but I think it's Theodore how do you really pronounce his name? See, this is what happens when you are self-educated. When you're self-educated, you pronounce things wrong because all you've ever done is read them. You haven't heard other people say them, right? So if you have a better way to say them, record it or pop it in the pop it in the notes. And for you guys who don't know who he is, let me come up here. He's an old school poet. I'm going to stop that screen sharing and I'm going to share another one because I was trying to get his pronunciation right, and of course I pronounced it my own way again. Theodor Ret I think is how it's German, so that's not how the Germans say it anyway, right? I know, but you know, you want to pronounce it how he wants it to be said. Hardly fits anyone's image of a stereotypical high-minded post-intellectual of the 1940s and 60s, born in Saginaw, Michigan. His father was a German immigrant who owned and ran a 25-acre greenhouse, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Some of the best, poets and best intellectuals come from these eccentric nonconformist backgrounds. That's why we love them so much. So don't be intimidated that you don't have the right credentials to create. You do. You're breathing air, right? That gives you permission in my book to create and to learn. Nothing is out of your reach. And even if you can't afford the tuition to go to a regular college, there's so much information out there. Most of the stuff that I've ever learned in my life didn't come from me giving money to somebody to teach me something. My grandmother was an autodidact, and I proudly subscribed to her philosophy that way. Self-learning is how you learn, whether you've got somebody who's teaching you or not. It's up to you, right? It's up to you, which is both daunting and freeing, in my opinion. Okay, so and the acknowledgments page goes on and on and on and on because, this is a substantial book of poems. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you of the contents and see if that doesn't sound like a poem to you. Contents: preface, about the cover art, highlights: a Copper Canyon Press timeline, 1973 to 1979. And I'm going to mispronounce probably every poet in here. Please forgive me. But as I said, I'm self-taught, and that's all I know is what I've read, pretty much. But it's good to be in conversation with you folks. So that's the cool thing about this kind of a channel. Gerald Castanazzo, Everything You Own. Robert Hidlin, Trans-Canadian. W.S. Ransom, Pastime Cafe. Gladys Cardiff, Combing. Richard Hugo, Neighbor. T.E.J., Fur. Kenneth Retzroth, As the Full Moon Rises. George Hitchcock, Solitaire. David Lee, For Jan with Love. Robert Wrigley, The Sinking of Clay City. 1980 to 1989. Barry Lopez, Desert Reservation. Denise Levertov, Poet and Person. William Stanford, British Columbia. Robert Sund, Considering Poverty. Richard Shelton, Promises. Carolyn Kizer, Bitch. Pablo Neruda, From Still Another Day. Vincent Alexander, Who I Write For. Jan Kaplinsky, East-West Border. James Laughlin, I Know How Every Poet. Jean Joubert, Brilliant Sky. Thomas McGrath, Praises and Something Dying Here. Olga Brumas, Touched. Marvin Bell, poem after Carlos Drummond de Andrade. There used to be a clothing store in Hawaii, Andrade's. Pablo Neruda, Love Song. John Bellabon, Words for My Daughter. Pablo Neruda, From the Book of Question. Stephen Berg, On the Side of the River. Hayden Carruth, The Impossible Indispensable of the Ars Poetica. On being asked to write a poem against the war in Vietnam. David Rumvet, Kiev, the Ukraine, and nuclear disaster, or nuclear accident. Lucille Clifton, Brothers, Won't You Celebrate With Me? W.S. Merwin, Separation, The River of Bees, The Room, The Birds on the Morning of Going. I think I was at his last, probably his last public engagement. It was at University of Hawaii at the Kennedy Theater, and he signed one of my books that I bought. W.S. Merwin. He spent the last of his years on the island of Maui, and I think I saw him right before he died. Tao Qian, Thinking of Impoverished Ancients. Marvin Bell, The Book of the Dead Man, number 1. Cyrus Cassell's Song from a Hospice. Su Tong Bo, Who Says a Painting Must Look Like Life. David Bottoms, Shooting Rats at the Bibb County Dump. Thomas Santorella, Joy. Arthur Tzu, In Your Honor. Hayden Carruth, Auburn Poem in California. Shirley Kaufman, Mothers, Daughters. Anna Sur, There Is a Light in Me, Virginity. James Galvin, Meteorology. Thomas McGrath, From Letter to an Imaginary Friend. W.S. Merwin, Berryman. Jim Harrison, From Letters to Yesenin. Timothy Liu, Vespers. Darwin's Dream by Clarence Major. Joseph Stroud, Ezra Under the Constellation of the Dragon. Providence. David Budbill, What Isa Heard. And Basho, they're two of my favorite haiku, tonka, Japanese poets. Dana Levin, The Nurse. Primus St. John, The Fountain. Karen Swinson, Sparrows. 2000 to 2009, Aaron Beaulieu, High Lonesome. Cold Mountain, Han Shan, from the collected songs. Ho Shan Huang, On a Portrait of Two Beauties. EQ, from Crow with No Mouth. Richard Jones, the novel. Stephen Cusisto, Elegy for Ted Bergen. Coral Bracco, The Allure of Forms. Madeline DeFries, To Marilyn Monroe, whose favorite color was white. Norman Duby, Of Politics and Art. Rolf Jacobson, Antenna Forest, Sunflower. Rebecca Sepharel, Proviso. Carolyn Kizer, Suppressing the Evidence. Caesar Pavese, Poetics. Ruth Stone, Always on the Train. C.D. Wright, Floating Trees, Girlfriend. Jean Folane, Voluntary Mutilation. Shirley Kaufman, Daily Ritual. Antonio Pato, From Proverbs and Songs. Antonio Portia, Voices. And Tagore, so Rabindranath Tagore, and you'd think I would know how to say his name. God knows I've been reading him forever. The Poem of the Sun Lion. Marvin Bell, Around Us. Ted Kuzer, Happy Birthday, Mother on the Road. Ben Lerner, From the Lichtenberg Figures. Jonathan Williams, The Photographer Looks at His Prints and Turns Poet. Eleanor Rand Wilner, The Girl with the Bees in Her Hair. Jeff Bouvier, Living Arrangement, Distant Relations. Myth gave birth to philosophy. Truth is the person who is there. A Bee's Advice. Scott Hightower, At the Trough. Dana Levin, Ars Poetica. W.S. Merwin, Place, Vixen. Jane Miller, Coda. Chase Twitchell, Soul in Space. Amy Uematsu, The Meaning of Zero, a love poem. Christian Wyman, Done. Taha Muhammad Ali, Revenge, Twigs. Mahmoud Darwish, We Were Missing a Present. Lisa Osteen, Jupiter Moon, May Hold Hidden Sea. Theodoretka, From the Straw for the Fire. Maram al-Masari, From I Look to You. Ellen Bass, Gate C22. June Jordan, Poem About My Rights. Poem for My Love. These Poems. Chris Martin, American Music. Peter Pereira, Anagrammer. C.D. Wright, In the Mansion of Happiness. Matthew Dickman, Grief. Olav H. Haig, This is the Dream. Sarah Lindsay, Song of a Spadefoot Toad. W.S. Merwin, Blueberries After Dark. Note, Rain Light. Valshena Mort, Factory of Tears. Dennis O'Driscoll, Cassandra. Brenda Shaughnessy, A Poem's Poem. Ruth Stone, Curtains. Fragrance, Yes, Think. Emily Warren, Shin, Instruction for Lighting Fires. Sherwin Bitsu, from The Flood Song. Michael Dickman, Seeing Whales. David Hererta, Silence. Lao Tzu, from the Tao Te Ching. Heather McHugh, Not to be Dwelled on. Gregory Orr, All Those Years, Words of Course But. Lucia Perillo, Inseminating the Elephant. Wei Ying Wu, On a Moonlit Night, Meeting at the Shu 11's Thatched Hut. 2010 through 2019. Chris Abani, Om. John Davis, The Immortals. Stephen Robbins, Poem. Benjamin Alir Sayans, Meditation on Living in the Desert. John Taggart, Magdalene Poem. Slow Song for Mark Rethko. Chase Twitchell, Mask of a Maiden. Connie Wanick, Monopoly. Matthew Zapruder, Little Voice. Marianne Boruch, The Mosquito Brings You Blood, It. To Make a Life Inside You. Robert Bringhurst, Larix Lyali. W.S.D. Pereiro, April. Jim Harrison, Death Again. Laura Kazichki, Pharmacy, Space in Chains. Sung Po Jen, 90, Windblown. James Arthur, Distracted by an Ergonomic Bicycle. Natalie Diaz, No More Cake Here. Lydia Demakovska, Memory. Dan Gerber, Postscript. Lucia Perillo, Otto Thalamium. Brenda Shaughnessy, Hide and Seek with God. George, or is it Eorg? Trackle. Grodek. Or Georg, I'm not sure which. David Wagner, After the Point of No Return. John Yao, Ill-Advised Love Poem. Dean Young, Frontage. Alfonso de Aquino, Written in the Grain of Salt. Kwame Dawes, Dirt. Carrie James Evans, Packed in Ice. Jennifer Michael Heck, Drummond's Don't Kill Yourself. Tom Hennon, Found on Earth. Bob Hickok, Ode to Magic. Tong Hui Hui, Ars Poetica. Fadi Judah, Intro to Life. Dennis Driscoll, Memoir. Roger Reeves, In a Brief Animated World, The Marriage of Anne of Denmark to James of Scotland, 1589. Yosa Burson, from Collected Haiku. Malachi Black, Coming and Going. Jericho Brown, Heart Condition. Olena Kalatiak Davis, The Poem She Didn't Write. Ted Cruiser, Splitting an Order. Swinging from Parents. W.S. Merwin, How It Happens. Renee Marie Rilke, Archaic Torso of Apollo. Arthur Cease, Confetti. Jeffrey Brown, West Point. Deborah Landau, From Minutes Years. Dennis O'Driscoll, Update. Albert Rios, Sudden Smells, Sudden Songs. Richard Sykin, Birds Hover the Trampled Fields. Frank Stanford, From the Battlefield Where the Moon Says I Love You. What about this? Jean Valentine, God of Rooms. The ship is slowly giving up her sentient life. I cannot write about it. Dean Young, Gizzard Song. Josh Bell, Notes Towards an Imperial Poetry. Jim Harrison, Bridge. W.S. Merwin, The Present. Lucia Pirillo, In the Confessional Mode with the Borrowed Movie Trope. Camille Rankin, Contact. Paisley Rendell, Self-Portrait as Mae West, One-Liner. Richard Richardson, Indispensable. One of the Evenings. Brenda Shaughnessy, I Have a Time Machine. Ed Scrooge, Run the Red Lights. Ocean Vuong, Telemachus. C.D. Wright, In a Word, in a World. From Concerning Why Poetry Offers a Better Deal Than the World's Biggest Retailer. Victoria Chang, Barbie Chang's Tears. Tree Day, Neuse River. Alex Dimitrov, You Were Blonde Once. John Freeman, The Boy Under the Car. Robert Heinlein, The Snow Country, The Wreck of the Great Northern. Laura Kasich, Green. Maurice Manning, Culture. Michael McGriff, I Am an Ox in the Year of the Horse. Rachel McKibbins, Asterix. Thomas Q. Moran, Gold Record. Lisa Osteen, What we're trying to do is create a community of dreamers. Dean Rader, America. I do not clear name without hope. Natalie Shapiro, God Only. Mostly I don't want to have a son. The Sky. Xavier Zamora? Or Javier Zamora? Let Me Try Again. Ghassan Zaktan, A Song, Their Absence. Dante Alighieri, From Purgatory. Jenny George, Death of a Child. Bob Hickok, Pacific. Ha Jin, You Must Not Run in Place. Ted Cruiser, Daddy Longlegs. Ursula Le Guin, Travelers. Wakeful Islanded. Amy Nezuko Matahil, Sea Church. David Orr, Sandbox. Melissa Stein, Racetrack. Tainum Bombrick, New Hire. Linda Beards, Cento for Sydney. Jericho Brown, Bullet Points. Duplex Cento. 4 Day in the Morning. Deborah Landau, The Silence Will Be Broken at Then Last. Liu Tsung Yang, 9, Meeting a Farmer at the Start of Spring. 44, Reading Books. Paisley Kendall, The City. Allison C. Rawlings, Elephants Born Without Tusks. Natalie Centers Zapico, My Macho Takes Care of Me Good. Joseph Strode, Hovering. Arthur Tse, First Snow. Keith S. Wilson, Field Notes. Dean Young, To Poetry. Matthew Zapruder, Poem for Doom. 2020 to 2023. Ellen Bass, Indigo. Mark Bibbins, From the 13th Balloon. Tracy Brimhall, Love Poem Without a Drop of Hyperbole. Victoria Chang, America. Leila Chianti, Leila Chatti, Confessions. Tyree Day, On Finding a Field. John Freeman, The Ex-Basketball Players. Bob Hickok, Having Our Cake and Being Eaten by It Too. Lewis Hyde, 9, Turning Back to First Nature. And 10, Entering the Village with Gift-Giving Hands. Jennifer L. Knox, Crushing It. Philip Metros, My Heart Like a Nation. James Richardson, From Up Here. From Vectors 5.1, otherwise aphorisms, 10-second essays. Albert Rios, Drunk Monsoon, A House Called Tomorrow. So I got to read that one since that's the title of the book, A House Called Tomorrow. So that's going to be on the short list today. Monica Sock, Recurring Dreams. Kelly Russell, Agondan. The Love Waltz with Fireworks. Caleb Ray Kandrilli, On Having Forgotten to Recycle. Alex Dimitrov, Sunset on 14th Street. Tashani Doshi, My Loneliness is Not the Same as Your Loneliness. Xiangyang Feng, Argument of Situations. Natasha Rao, Old Growth. Natalie Shapiro, It Used to Be We Had to Go to War. Arthur Tse, The Owl. Ferdinand Valverde, The Wound Before the Tomb of Walt Whitman. Nikki Walschlager, Just Because We're Scared Doesn't Mean We're Wrong. William Carlos Williams. Noah Warren, The Complete Stories. Tanum Bombrick, New Year's Eve. Olena Kalyatika Davis, Vague Alalem. Akawari Imazi, Disclosure. John Friedman, Decoys. Julia Jawiritz, From a Short History of the West. Nicholas Goodley, Evening Prayer. Kate Marvin, Event Horizon. Sarah Rule, I Have Brought My Dog With Me. Why? What are we following when we are folding? What are we folding when we are folding laundry in quarantine? Christopher Soto, All the Dead Boys Look Like Us. Michael Wasson, On the Horizon. Jaswinder Bolina, a poem like the soul, which can't be translated. Natalie Eilbert, Bacterium, Jory Graham, 2000 to 2040. Amanda Gunn, Prayer. Patricia Spears Joan, Morning Glory. Deborah Loundow, Skeletons, Flesh. Randall Mann, Double Life. Jade Miller, The Grand Piano. Lisa Olstein, Root. Javier Penalosa, It Happened to the Arches. Kevin Proofer, A Body of Work. Dennis Rader, Meditations on Absolution. Paisley Reckdahl, not Ash. Tao Yung Ming, In Praise of Impoverished Gentlemen. Thomas Tromer, Late May, Sketch in October. And that is it. All 500 pages. So I've got a date with a book this afternoon. How about you? What are you guys reading? And have you got your copy? It's always good to support local modern literature, and that's kind of a nice mix of both, because some of those like Rilke, he's not exactly modern, and neither is Basho or Iso. So it's going to be quite the mix. I'm going to look forward to enjoying my early Easter present, and that's about it. I may pop on a little bit more today. I'm not sure. We'll see how much of a rabbit hole I get with this book. But until tomorrow, I'll come with another poem in celebration of National Poetry Month. Have a blessed day.